Welcome to 7 ways to improve your paintings as a beginner and give them a more professional look. Let's start. So the first way is to use a decent amount of paint. I would even say a lot of paint. So not too much where there is blobs of paint on your canvas and it takes hours to dry, but also not just light wash of paint. You want to use a decent enough of paint to cover your canvas, okay? So that's the first way. So the second way is avoid white spots. So avoid leaving white spots and specks on your canvas. I cannot stress this enough. Doing this will just bring you from being a beginner to making your paintings look much more polished and professional. Leaving those white little spots and not using enough paint on the canvas, it just makes your paintings look just sloppy and screams beginner, okay? I don't want to see any spots on that canvas. No matter how hard it may be to get into those edges and nooks and crannies and using more paint, but it's worth it in the end. So, number 3, we have layer paint. This is a big one. Layering paint on canvas actually makes your paintings look a lot better. It makes them look like you've spent hours on them. So for example, doing a background wash, then adding the foreground, then adding layers to that, maybe waiting for a layer to dry, then adding details. I would just say don't be scared to layer, because whenever you see layered paintings, you automatically think, wow, hours of work and painting must have gone into that artwork, and it just makes it look a lot more worked at, more expensive and more professional, which is what we're going for here, right? So layer, layer, layer. I'd say there can be never enough layering. No harm in layering, okay? So step number 4 is blend well. Blend well, okay? So this is also important. Whenever in a painting there isn't like well done blending, it also screams beginner and like, ooh, the person hasn't kind of worked on this painting enough. So unless you're using a stippling brush technique, unless you're using a technique that doesn't have a blended look when you're painting, I would say make sure whatever it is that you have on the canvas, that it's nicely blended. It gives your painting a more seamless and beautiful look, okay? So number 5. Paint loose and not too realistic. So as a beginner, you may have a limited skill set, and you may not be able to paint realistic things. And although we want to learn and we want to get there, of course, as a goal, I would say to make your paintings look less like a beginner and more like a professional artist, stick to a loose style of painting that looks even maybe a little bit abstract, where there's a clear kind of style, because that loose way of painting and staying away from focusing on little details and really attempting to make something look realistic, having that loose kind of brush stroke style will make it look like your style, as opposed to a lack of skill to be able to make something look realistic. So I would say big strokes, nice and flowy, a little bit maybe even abstract looking, not too realistic. It will instantly make your paintings look more stylized and not like beginner paintings. Okay, number 6 now. Stick to a color palette when painting. Now I'm going to explain this a little bit more, what I mean by stick to a color palette. So for example, say you're doing a painting, what I would recommend is picking a color palette. So say you want to use two main colors, a warm color and a cold color, right? Because they often actually complement each other and make your painting look contrasting. So the cold color, the cool color blue, using different shades of that blue color family, and say a warm color yellow, using different shades, lighter and darker, of that color family of yellow. So sticking to a color palette in a painting, choosing say blue and yellow like I mentioned, and sticking to darker and lighter shades of those colors makes your painting look more thought out, more seamless, gives it more harmony, and it makes it look a little bit more professional and just put together, and gives it a harmonious composition, I would say. So that's a little tip that I have. It's also easier actually because you're using the same colors and you're just creating lighter shades of that same color and darker shades, maybe mixing some other colors to create different shades of that, and it's even easier as opposed to mixing loads of different colors. And lastly, this is a very simple step, but it's a game changer, is actually painting the edges of your canvas. This is number 7 and my last tip for you. So this is what I mean, is painting these bad boys. Similar, pretend like they're as much part of the canvas as the main bit here. Painting the edges of your canvas just makes it look finished and polished and clean and gives it that professional flair. So there you go, there you have it. Those are my 7 steps to improve your paintings, and I just guarantee you that if you start implementing those steps into your paintings, into your art journey, you will start seeing changes, and it will just level up your art and make it look much more put together and professional.